Okay guys, I'm out here in the great outdoors with the best herper in Alabama, who happens to also be my daughter. We're doing a kind of a little combination herping trip and camping trip, and finally, after a day, yesterday and today, this morning of looking, we finally found one tiny snake, and that is him. You may have seen these guys. They're very common in a lot of their range. I don't see nearly as many of them as most people seem to. This is a red-bellied snake, and I'm kind of blanking on its Latin name. Its genus is Storerii, if I'm saying that correctly. Very closely related. They're in the same genus as the Decay's brown snake. This one is a young one. He's probably was from last year. He's maybe, I don't know, 6-7 inches long. These are small snakes anyway, though. A lot of people see these and think they're some kind of a baby. Again, copperhead almost always is the culprit, but this is a completely harmless snake. It's feeds on invertebrates. An adult, most of the adults you see are not going to be much more than 12 inches. I think the maximum size is probably listed somewhere around 18 inches, but most of them you're going to see are quite a bit smaller than that. You find them a lot in gardens, just like the decay snakes. They eat, like I said, invertebrates. They'll eat slugs, which are pests if you have a garden, and other small insects and worms and insect larvae and things like that. But very cool. This one has. Can you hold him up so you can see his belly? This one has an orange belly. They can be much more red than that. They look on the top side, the dorsal side, they look very similar to a Decay's brown snake a lot of times. There are some differences in the markings on their head, and they tend to have less pattern than the Decay's brown snakes, but some brown snakes don't have much pattern either, so they can be difficult to distinguish. But they live throughout, as far as I know, all of Alabama, although I believe they're much more common in the southern part, or at least not in the mountains where we live. And I know they range all the way up into the northeast in midwestern United States. I think there's several different subspecies. These are a snake I don't know a whole lot about as far as the specifics of the range and subspecies, but they're pretty common in a lot of areas. But like I said, I don't see a whole lot of them in most of the places where I live and go on trips, I guess. But how do you feel about him?
I think he's a cool little snake. I've never found one of these before.
Yeah. You mostly find them in leaf litter like this, under logs. That's where this one was. They stay in kind of moist, damp places. You can see we're close to a pond, but they're not necessarily around water, but they stay underneath, like I said, the leaf litter and cover where it is fairly moist most of the time. But anyway, that's it. That's the harmless and beneficial red-bellied snake. I promise it's not a baby copperhead or anything like that. And you want to let him go over here by his log?
Yes.
I'm going to put him back where we found him. Put him under the edge of that. And away he goes. So there's a balloon. You might think that's a 1 in a million chance. I find these things out in the woods all the time. Stop letting balloons go. That's littering. And it trashes up my woods. And we found our next snake. There is Herper extraordinaire and her most recent find. I think I had one of these in the last video. This one is especially pretty though. It's freshly shed. Maybe 4 feet, not a real big one, but this is the gray or midland rat snake that we have in northern Alabama. She's holding him on the hook because these guys tend to be a little bit nippy. This one's not too bad, but since we're trying to do a video, I don't want her to have to dodge strikes to her face or anything like that. But he'll probably settle down pretty quickly. Do you know the taxonomic name of these?
I used to, but I think I forgot.
These are Pantherophis spiloides. There's always a lot of I guess debate on the rat snakes. They there's kind of intergrades between them. Can you get the hook out of them? There's intergrades out of between the different species. There's a lot of debate which one should be their own species, if there should be subspecies, if they're all one snake. They're pretty similar. The patterns can vary a lot, like I mentioned in the last one. This is pretty typical for our area, kind of a medium gray color with dark blotches. He has some pretty cool striping down his neck area. You can see he doesn't like this camera eye staring at him, but he's just scared. He's afraid we're gonna eat him. Believe it or not, these things are far from the top of the food chain. They get eaten by all kinds of predators.
When I first found him, she was really, really still and hoping that we didn't see him. Because they do not want to attack you in any way, they just want you to leave them alone.
Correct. We rounded a log and Tira spotted him. He was doing the typical rat snake. They'll kind of freeze and kink their body up. They'll have a bunch of little kinks all down their body. General consensus is that kind of breaks up their outline. There's not a whole lot of straight lines in nature, so the squiggly lines kind of keep them from being like one big long reflection of light off their shiny scales. It kind of breaks things up and makes them blend in better. What do these eat?
Rats and rodents for the most part, but they'll eat a lot of other stuff. They'll eat baby birds sometimes too.
Right, and eggs. Correct. They get pretty large, right?
They get around 5 feet. Records I think have been up to 6 or so.
Yeah, well, the records for rat snakes, Pantherophis, is over 8 feet, but 6 feet, a little over 6 feet is the biggest ones I ever see. I have no doubt they can get up to 8 like they say, but I've never seen one. Maybe that's more common in some of the western subspecies. Honestly, I think you can probably use your hand if it's easier for you. Put their other hand up there. He's not I wouldn't grab him, but if you just kind of use it like a hook, probably fine.
Now I'm going to have musk all over me.
Yeah, and that's their worst defense. They have a musk. Almost most snakes do. They'll musk on you, just excrete a pretty foul-smelling substance from their cloaca. It's worse than their bite, honestly. Let's not let him get in your face, though. That's the least fun place to be bitten. But anyway, this is the gray rat snake. Like I said, I did a video on them recently. They're very, very common snakes in Alabama, really in most of the east. Cool snakes that get large. They're kind of semi-arboreal. They'll spend a lot of time up in the trees finding baby birds or eggs, or raiding squirrel nests and that kinds of thing. But you can see, harmless, good to have around your house if you don't like mice chewing through your walls and getting under your house. These won't chew your wires up. They don't poop all over all your stuff and stink real bad, and don't get into your Lucky Charms or whatever. So they're cool snakes. A bite from them is about like those briars over there. May not be the most pleasant thing, but completely harmless. Might make you bleed a little, but they're not bad at all. Harmless. You want to put him back by the log where you found him?
Yeah.
Alright, let me get these hooks and take him back over there and let him go where he was going. And there's right on its tail. A lot of people think snakes do that to mimic rattlesnakes, but that's a bit of a misnomer. Snakes all over the world do that. Snakes that have really no connection with rattlesnakes, never been anywhere near a rattlesnake. They all do that to kind of scare off predators. And what happened was rattlesnakes evolved to be very good at making a loud sound. It's just meant to startle and intimidate something that might eat them. But anyway, there he goes. That's the Pantherophis spiloides gray rat snake. Common snakes, harmless, good to have around.